Have you ever had this experience? Waking up suddenly at 3 in the morning, your mind abnormally clear, yet feeling an overwhelming surge of anxiety because you have to go to work tomorrow? You force your eyes shut, desperately trying to reclaim a few more minutes of unconsciousness. But what if I told you that this specific form of insomnia didn't even exist before the 19th century? Before Thomas Edison successfully weaponized light to steal our darkness, human sleep was not the continuous 8-hour block we struggle to maintain today. According to the groundbreaking research of historian Roger A. Kirch, our ancestors possessed a fascinating biological rhythm known as biphasic sleep, or two sleeps. In the pre-industrial world, people would drift off shortly after sunset as the natural world dimmed. However, around midnight, they would naturally wake up for a period known as the watch. This was not a time of restlessness or medical pathology. It was the most liberated time for the human soul. In the soft, flickering amber glow of a single candle, people would spend these midnight hours reading, praying, or even visiting neighbors under the starlight. Some would use this quiet window for deep reflection or intimacy with their partners, a sacred gap between the first sleep and the second sleep. After an hour or two of this peaceful wakefulness, they would return to bed and fall into a deep slumber until sunrise. This segmented time was once the primary bridge between the human psyche and the realm of dreams. In those days, the night did not belong to the concept of industrial efficiency or measurable output. It belonged entirely to the individual. It was a space where the biological clock moved in harmony with the cosmos, not the ticking of a factory foreman's stopwatch. When we lost the darkness, we didn't just lose rest. We lost the only part of our day that remained uncolonized by the demands of production. We traded a primal, rhythmic freedom for a rigid, artificial standard that our bodies are still secretly fighting against every single night in the modern world. This is the first cost of the industrial asphyxia, the death of the sovereign night. In the year 1879, Thomas Alva Edison successfully commercialized the incandescent light bulb, a moment traditionally celebrated in history textbooks as the triumph of human civilization over the tyranny of darkness. We are taught to view this as an act of pure enlightenment, a benevolent expansion of human activity. However, from the perspective of the hidden cost, this was not merely a technological breakthrough, it was a systematic, armed colonization of the human biological rhythm. For the industrial titans of the late 19th century, the night was an expensive and useless void. As long as the factory floor remained in darkness, the assembly line stood frozen, the flow of capital was choked, and the extraction of profit ceased. To a capitalist, darkness was a direct financial loss. Edison himself was a notorious sleep hater, a man who publicly denounced sleep as a remnant from our cave-dwelling days and a shameful symbol of laziness. He argued that every minute spent by humanity in unconsciousness was a staggering waste of industrial potential. He famously reduced his own rest to mere naps, viewing the biological necessity of sleep as a flaw that needed to be corrected by the force of modern engineering. The true objective behind the introduction of artificial light was to turn the factory into a 24/7 engine of production. To make the three-shift system a viable reality, the industrial apparatus had to forcibly erase the biphasic sleep pattern that had governed human life for tens of thousands of years. They redefined the night as a second day, creating a new social paradigm that compelled us to compress our entire restorative cycle into a single, rigid 8-hour block, a block that could be easily scheduled around the needs of the foreman and the machine. By drenching the world in artificial glare, they shattered the natural cues our brains rely on to navigate the transition between wakefulness and rest. Suddenly, if your body craved its ancient midnight awakening, you were no longer regarded as a watcher of the soul or a reflective inhabitant of the natural world. Instead, you were labeled with a medical pathology, the insomniac. You were branded as defective because your biological clock refused to synchronize with the relentless RPM of the factory's steam engines. This was the birth of the 24-hour society, a world where the sun never sets because the factory whistle never stops blowing. We were being domesticated, trained to ignore the rising and setting of the moon, and conditioned to believe that rest was only valuable if it allowed us to work harder the next morning. The light bulb was the first invisible chain, binding our very cells to the budget of the electric company and the production quotas of the industrial elite. It was the moment we traded the sovereign, rhythmic freedom of the natural night for a sulfur-yellow prison of uninterrupted productivity. We won the ability to see in the dark, but we lost the wisdom of the shadows. And in doing so, we handed the keys to our biological sanctuary over to the masters of the machine. This transformation was far more than a mere cultural shift in lifestyle. It was a profound, physiological domestication of the human species. Deep within the human retina lies a specialized group of photosensitive cells that are exquisitely sensitive to blue wavelength light. In the primordial world, these cells acted as our natural anchors to reality, signaling to the brain that the sun had risen and it was time to hunt or gather. When these cells capture even the faintest trace of light, they send an immediate, high-priority command to the pineal gland to cease the secretion of melatonin. Melatonin is not just a sleep hormone, it is our body's sovereign passport to the repair mode of existence. It is the chemical architect of our immune system, our emotional regulation, and our cognitive restoration. In the pre-industrial wild, this mechanism kept us safe and synchronized with the cosmos. However, in the industrial era, this ancient biological instinct was weaponized against us, turned into a shimmering chain that binds us to the machine. Every street lamp, every gas flame, and every incandescent bulb functions like a tiny, invisible needle piercing the suprachiasmatic nucleus of the human brain. We traded our biological sovereignty for the convenience of a 24/7 society, but the price was the death of deep, restorative rest. We have effectively domesticated our own internal clocks to match the relentless hum of a factory generator. This domestication makes the human animal far easier to manage within a rigid hierarchy. A person who has lost their natural biphasic rhythm is a person whose emotional peaks are flattened, whose creative rebelliousness is dampened, and whose tolerance for monotonous, repetitive labor is unnaturally increased. We are no longer spirits who rest when the moon rises. We have become clockwork organisms operating according to electric budgets and production quotas. By systematically eradicating the darkness, the industrial apparatus did more than just light up the room. It colonized our internal sanctuary. It destroyed our capacity for the self-repair, dreaming, and deep reflection that can only occur in the absence of artificial stimulation. We have become physiological slaves to the light, existing in a permanent state of biological stress. Even when we close our eyes, our brains remain in a state of startled alertness, forever haunted by the ghosts of the photons we created to serve our masters. We won the battle against the night, but in that victory, we surrendered the most fundamental dignity of a living being, the right to exist in harmony with our own internal darkness. If you believed that the simple incandescent light bulb marked the final frontier of this industrial colonization, you were gravely mistaken. In the 21st century, this industrial asphyxia has evolved into a far more insidious and aggressive form, the ubiquitous digital screen. The smartphone you hold in your hand right now is, in essence, a miniaturized, portable version of Edison's light bulb, a personal sun that you carry directly into your sanctuary of rest. However, it is infinitely more dangerous than its Victorian ancestor. While the original light bulb merely illuminated the physical darkness, the digital screen has been engineered to intervene directly in your brain's neurochemical reward system. It doesn't just push back the shadows, it invades your very consciousness. The high-intensity blue light emitted by these devices functions like a digital scalpel, precisely severing the connection between your body and its natural urge to sleep. But the hardware is only half of the trap. Behind that blue glow lies an army of sophisticated algorithms designed with one singular purpose: to exploit your physiological state of forced alertness and lock your attention into an infinite loop of scrolling. When you feel that sudden, inexplicable surge of curiosity or anxiety at 2 a.m., prompting you to refresh your feed just one more time, understand that this is not an accident of human nature. It is a biological harvest. The tech giants of today have perfected what the industrial barons of the 1880s could only dream of: the total extraction of value from the human night. From the era of Frederick Taylor dismantling your daytime rhythm to the modern era of harvesting your late-night traffic, the underlying logic remains chillingly consistent. In the eyes of the industrial machine, any moment that does not generate data, consume advertising, or transform into measurable output is a wasted resource, a leakage of productivity that must be eradicated. We are now witnessing the systematic shrinkage of the human right to dream. The algorithm is effectively retraining the human brain to function as a 24/7 processor, a node in a global network that must never go offline. We are trapped within a cyan-colored panopticon where every millisecond of wakefulness serves as nutrients for a digital empire. Our insomnia is no longer a personal struggle. It has been commodified. Every hour of sleep you lose is an hour of profit for a corporation whose survival depends on your inability to close your eyes. We have built a world where disconnecting is no longer a choice, but a form of industrial rebellion that the system is designed to punish through FOMO and social isolation. We are living in the terminal stage of Edison's dream, a world of perfect, agonizing clarity, where the silence of the night has been replaced by the relentless, flickering scream of the algorithm. In this epic, 150-year-long gamble against the darkness, we have achieved a level of material prosperity unprecedented in human history. We have illuminated our cities, extended our hours of production, and in a sense, claimed a decisive victory over the natural limitations of our biology. But as we stand under the relentless glare of this modern world, I want you to ask yourself, in that silent night murdered by the forces of industrialization, which part of your soul died along with it? We won the convenience of a 24/7 existence, but we lost the profound restorative silence that once allowed us to converse with our own shadows. We have traded the sacred rhythm of the cosmos for the artificial hum of the electric grid. When you find yourself lying awake at 3 a.m., gripped by an inexplicable anxiety because you cannot force your mind into that precisely defined 8-hour block of efficient rest, remember this: perhaps it isn't your brain that is broken. Perhaps it is the last remnant of your primal biological soul staging a final, desperate rebellion against a century of industrial asphyxia. This insomnia you feel is not a medical pathology, it is a physiological strike. It is the last proof that you are still a living being, refusing to be reduced to a mere gear in a perpetual motion machine. We have been conditioned to fear the dark, but it is only in the absence of artificial light that we can truly see who we are. The colonization of sleep was the ultimate victory of the factory over the human spirit, yet your restlessness remains an uncolonized territory. Next time you flip the switch, try not to rush into a dream world that has already been harvested by algorithms. Instead, try to embrace the darkness that has been missing from your life for so long. Within that darkness lies a freedom that cannot be monitored, measured, or sold, a freedom to simply exist without the obligation of output. We have won the battle for the affordable Model T and the glowing smartphone, but we have sold the sovereignty over our natural biological rhythms. This efficiency poisoning lingers in our very consciousness, making it impossible for us to simply stop and breathe. If you wish to pierce through the artificial fog of progress and see the true price tags hidden behind our modern civilization, please subscribe to The Hidden Cost. Some truths are heavy to bear, but only by facing them can we avoid becoming mere lubricant for the grinding gears of history. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next Forgotten Truth.